that sucked. Let me try that again. It's actively like sucking the butane out of there. What is good? Welcome back to another extraction video. I will be using my new 90-gram closed loop extractor from shopbvv.com in this video. I treated myself to this upgrade when I reached 1,000 subs, but things weren't as straightforward out of the box as they could have been. And while I love this site, their instructions aren't always the best, and you have to kind of figure out a lot of stuff on your own. So if you're like me and you want just a set of instructions without all the confusion, hopefully this video will help you out. Alright, look at this massive unit. This thing has some heft to it. Now this, as big as it may seem, is still a mini closed loop extractor. So it is on the smaller side as far as extractors in general go. But for me, it is a major upgrade and a major upgrade in size too. So this is a 90-gram closed loop extractor. And this is an upgrade from my 45-gram closed pressurized column. And just a few things to note. This came with a normal top valve without any extra features, but I used my top valve from my closed pressurized column, which has a pressure gauge, a sight valve, and a shower head. So you get more even distribution of the butane when it goes into the plant material, as opposed to just burrowing a hole right down the middle. So it's more efficient. It did come with another one of these metal spools, so I don't know if I was supposed to put it in line like that, so I have 1, 2, and then the collection base, or if it's just like a spare part in case anything goes wrong with that one. And then this piece right here is the ball valve. So now it is on, now it is off. And from what I've seen online and just like doing my research, some people use this type of closed loop extractor without this piece. Some people use this piece. I put it in here because this more closely resembles what I'm used to, which is the closed pressurized column where the solvent goes into the plant material and then soaks for 5 minutes before you evacuate it and have your extracted solvent. But some people use it without this valve and just have the butane run through the plant material and into the collection base. Cold temperatures are important in extraction for a number of reasons. First of all, they help preserve the terpenes, cannabinoids, and anything else you may want to extract from your plant material, but they also help create a thermal difference, which strengthens the pressure difference and facilitates the flow of solvent through your system. So if you're using this green tank, the first step is to vacuum everything out, create a negative pressure, put it under ice, and let it sit for a while. This drop in temperature will decrease the pressure even more. I'm using my white butane tank, so I need that little adapter, which I have a story about, which I will talk about in a second. And now I am going to take out my empty vacuumed green tank and weigh it so I get a base weight. Then I'm going to tare it so I know how much butane is actually flowing in there. Alright, some quick context. I bought this equipment, life happened and a bunch of time went by before I could even open it, let alone start using it. But during that wait, I noticed that there was no way of getting butane out of that white tank and into my extractor or that little green tank without some sort of adapter. So I emailed the company, they told me which adapter to get, but they also let me know that that white tank does not have a dip tube. So in order to get liquid butane out, I would need to flip it upside down before I opened it. And that is a crucial step that I forgot to do, which you will see in 1 second. Okay. Even though my scale dies, you can see the weight isn't going up at all. It's just gas. And gas does us no good because we are looking for a solvent, a liquid solvent to get those terpenes, cannabinoids, etc. You know. Alright, so just powering through to the next step, you want to close that top valve and make sure all the other valves are open, including the ball valve, which has a lock on it. There's the lock. Then you want to hook up your vacuum pump to the exit port turn it on, and wait for the pressure gauges to reach their lowest value. You can usually tell by the sound of the vacuum pump that nothing more is being vacuumed out, but if you have pressure gauges, even better. Now that the whole system is under vacuum and the ball valve is in place and closed, we essentially have two sealed chambers with the same pressure at the moment, but we can manipulate them individually. Alright, notice how the pressure reads the same in both chambers. And you may be wondering why I'm doing this if I know that there's no liquid in there. At the moment that I'm doing this, I didn't know that there was a problem. Until...
No! Alright, the reason I said no is because though the pressure did go up, I didn't see any liquid go down into this thing.
Just remember, guys, you gotta suck at stuff before you get good. So this is my first iteration. I'm not very good. I'm still learning everything. But hopefully I will get better with experience and practice.
Alright, well, okay. Wait till like 6:55, 6:54. Then we'll blast it. I don't think I got anything, though.
You can tell that there was nothing in the green tank because when I open the ball valve, the whole system pretty much goes down to atmospheric pressure. If the extraction went as expected, there would be a positive reading in both pressure gauges at the moment.
This would normally be the part where you recover the solvent, but I don't think any liquid got into here. I think it was all gas, so I think it was a waste. So you're not supposed to do this, but I'm just gonna... Yeah, see? Alright, well, that sucked. Let me try that again.
I didn't record this part, but I did pull a vacuum on the system again before doing this next step. So at this point, I just want to make sure that I get something, so I gave up on the white tank, green tank situation and just went with the butane cans, but I made another mistake, which is forgetting to close the ball valve before injecting that first can. But I was able to close it quick enough so it didn't make too much of a difference. Especially because these are only partially filled cans. They aren't new full cans of butane.
Now you can see that the pressure in this part of the system is higher than the pressure in this part of the system because the butane is right in here settling. This is a very rough first use of this. So hopefully my next attempt will be better. Alright. So even though that was a failure, let's see if we can recover that little bit of butane from these cans into this thing. So this is the vapor port. So this is for the recovery. And I'm not exactly sure how the inside of this tank works, but I'm just gonna trust that it knows what it's doing in there. Ready, watch the pressure change.
So a couple of good signs. You heard that hiss, and also both of the pressure gauges are above 0. So that's better than the last time.
I hope that worked. I just want to get something. Warm water.
This all seems very new and complicated, but if you think about it, it's really similar to the closed pressurized column. The only difference is instead of blasting into a Pyrex dish, you're blasting into a contained collection base, and instead of the first hot water bath evaporating that butane into the immediate surroundings, it is channeling it into a recovery tank. And that does a couple of things. First of all, it makes it safer because you don't have butane just evaporating into your immediate area, and it also lets you reuse that solvent in future extractions, so it's a little more economical, a little more efficient. Alright, so the next step is recovering the solvent. First of all, you want to make sure your collection base is in a warm water bath, but you also want to make sure your recovery tank is as cold as you can get it. Dry ice is going to make this process a lot quicker and easier, but regular ice will do the trick as well. It'll just take a while.
Oh shit, why is the pressure going up?
I think there was still some gas left over in that little green tank, and I also think that little green tank didn't get cold enough with just that ice. So when I opened those valves, the tank became part of the system and the pressure went up to equalize. And this all occurred to me as I was editing this video together.
You know, I'm gonna have dinner and come back and see what happens.
So I came back a couple hours later and the pressure didn't really change, so I just released the butane from that exit port without the recovery tank. So this first extraction basically turned into another closed pressurized column because I didn't recover any solvent, but things went a lot more according to plan when I used dry ice, which you will see in 1 second. I just turned this camera on at the worst time, but it was making like a buzzing noise. Like there was like a vacuum pump on or something. It's crazy. That's what I mean. Do you hear that? Isn't that crazy? Look at that. I'm gonna let this soak for about 30 minutes before I fill it with butane from my white tank. This is my first time using dry ice, so... Oh shit. I guess I should start filling this up too. That works a lot better, actually. It's so crazy when the dry ice like comes into contact with metal that isn't as cold as it like vibrates. So it's at 14 pounds, but I tared it, so the goal is to push like 1 to 2 pounds of solvent into this thing. So let's do that right now. All right, so I'm gonna open the liquid. Open the liquid all the way. It's 125. And now let's watch the gauges. All right, so this part is closed. So this pressure should not change, but this pressure should. Let's do that. Okay, so that did not work. I don't know what's happening. I don't know why that's not working. Yet nothing came out. What if I do this? Here are my guesses. I don't think I put enough butane into that little green tank, and or the dip tube wasn't like long enough to reach the butane, so I don't know, nothing came out. If you think it's something else, feel free to let me know in the comments. But anyway, I decided to skip the middleman and just use the white tank with the extractor, but I forgot to hit record. So when I hit the record button, I thought I was stopping the video, but I was really starting a video, which is what we're seeing now. Once again, watch the pressure gauges change. And after the ball valve is open, they should match more or less. Warm water bath. This is in a warm water bath. This is super cold. So now let's open this up. I don't know. Oh, look at that. See, the pressure's going down. That's good. Look, it even has a negative pressure. So it's like actually sucking it out of me. Alright, now I don't hear it hissing anymore. Maybe just slightly. I'll let it sit for a little bit. Alright, it's been a couple minutes, and I'm going to open up the valve. Oh, it looks like both of the pressures match each other though. But they're at a negative pressure, which is interesting because that means that it's actively like sucking the butane out of there. Notice how the pressure is below 0 inches of mercury. So when I open up the valve, air rushes in instead of excess butane rushing out. Got the first batch purging right now, and I still have plenty of dry ice, and it didn't go as smoothly as I was hoping, so I'm going to try to do another run right now. Here I have it ready to be loaded up, and I think I am going to use GG number 4 from my last grow tent because I got 2 jars of it. Alright, so I'm doing it a little bit differently this time around. I'm going to pull the vacuum with the vacuum line already attached, so that way the vacuum extends
to the vacuum line as well as to the system. Everything is open except this valve right here. So I'm going to pull the vacuum right now. Alright. As you can see, pressure is dropping. Alright, looks like we have a full vacuum. So I'm going to close this one. Turn the vacuum off. And then I'm going to close the ball valve.
And I forgot to close the valve to the collection chamber, that exit port. So when the vacuum pump shut off, air started rushing back into the collection base because there was a negative pressure in there and nothing to seal it in. I didn't catch this until I was editing this together. So unfortunately that valve remained open for the extraction.
Alright, so now I'm going to invert this white tank because it does not have a dip tube. Alright, it is open now. Alright, and then let's watch the site port. Here we go. 1027. There it goes. I'm not doing this the way I'm supposed to be doing it. I should be watching it, but there. Alright, that's enough. Turn this back over and close it. Sweet. Alright, so now as you can see, the pressure didn't change in this collection base, but it did go up in the material column. So I'm going to let it sit for a couple minutes and we'll be right back. Alright, so it's been just about 5 minutes. Once again, you can see lower pressure in here, higher pressure in here. So let's open up the ball valve. Let's see if you can hear it. Listen. Watch the pressure gauge too. You hear that? I don't have a sight glass or anything, so I can't see what's happening in there, but I heard something. Alright, it is fully open now. And the pressure should match more or less. Sometimes the gauges get a little bit off caliber, but it is now time for the hot water bath. Pick this baby up. And put it into this hot water bath. And then I can open this vapor port and let's watch the dials. Ready? See the pressure drop? Now this green recovery tank has been giving me a little bit of problems. I haven't really been able to use it how it's supposed to be used because I don't know, I just can't seem to get liquid to come out of this thing. And I'm nervous about like overfilling it because all the instructions hammer home the point that you shouldn't go above 80% of the capacity for safety reasons. Alright, so I'm going to let this sit for a while to recover some of that solvent that is evaporating out of the collection base, and then we will pick up from there. Alright, so I have stopped hearing the hissing and it looks like it's reached a neutral pressure, so I'm going to go ahead and close this port. Oh, you know what? I'm going to open it back up because I'm going to open up this and then open up this. Okay, yeah, now that's getting the rest of the butane out of that hose. Alright, and then once that, I'll give that a couple more minutes to soak through the material column and then I will call it.
That's so satisfying. Oh, wow. Look how fresh that looks. And if you're wondering why I'm using this tool, is because I used my regular metal spatula the first time I used this, and I noticed some little scratches at the bottom of this splatter platter, and I didn't want to scratch up my new equipment, so I'm being extra careful. Clearly I did a lot of things wrong, but one of the things I want to try next time is doing multiple runs on the same material column, because I feel like there's a lot to be left on the table if I just do one run. I know all of that may have been confusing, especially since there was a bunch of mistakes and I had to go on a bunch of tangents to explain things, so let me just briefly go over the standard operating procedures of this equipment with some simple diagrams. First of all, for maximum efficiency, you want to include the vacuum hose in your system, so instead of closing the top valve on your extractor, you can just leave that open and make sure the valve on your butane source is closed. Besides that one closed valve on your butane source, all the other valves should be open at this point. Next, you want to turn on your vacuum pump and wait for both pressure gauges to reach about negative 30 inches of mercury before you close the exit port valve on your collection base. This is a very important step that I screwed up, so you want to close that port and then turn the vacuum pump off. Now you can close that ball valve, making 2 separately sealed chambers in your extractor. At this point, I invert my white butane tank because it doesn't have a dip tube. I open up that valve and wait for the butane to fill into the extractor. Now, this part of the process is still a little iffy for me because I don't know how to monitor the amount of butane flowing in, but I do use the pressure gauges and I err on the side of caution, which means I probably could have injected more butane. At this point, you can flip your butane tank back over and let the extractor sit for 2 to 5 minutes. Once that soak is complete, you can open the ball valve and evacuate your solution into the collection base. Now the only thing left to do is recover your solvent and start your purge. So you want to put your collection base in a shallow warm water bath. You want to make sure your recovery tank is in a slurry of dry ice and ethanol, and that pressure difference will be strengthened by that temperature difference, helping move the solvent from your extractor to the recovery tank. Let the system sit like this until you know that most of the solvent has been recovered using the pressure gauges as a guide, and then you can close the valve on your recovery tank. From here, you're pretty much done. All you need to do is collect the BHO from the splatter platter and commence the vacuum purge. One thing I will note, if you've seen my previous BHO videos, I used to do the vacuum purge in intervals of 2 to 3 hours. I found out that that's wrong. You want to just pull a vacuum and not interrupt that vacuum unless you absolutely have to. And you should leave that vacuum purging for about 24 hours or longer.